I hope. I keep having these problems with my ears, y'all. Let's see. Let's do this side. There we go. I swear, Apple, I think they do certain things just to make you have to buy products sometimes. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started because it's late. Literally 10:55, and I am late with posting this. So, hey, Ia. I didn't see who else just popped in. It went off my screen too quickly. But, all right. So, if you have been following the two videos that I posted previously about Alzheimer's, about, hey, Bobby, what's up? About what I've been experiencing with people in my family, especially my mom. I have just been on a real big journey with understanding dementia, Alzheimer's, doing tons of research. I say for like the past 2.5, 3 years, I've been doing a lot of research. I'm on my bed, so this might be shaky. Let me try not to move so much. So anyway, the other day that I posted about kind of my story, and hey Bree, I posted about my story and how there has been a series that's been put together. And the first series was Awakening from Alzheimer's, and it was, I forget what the specific title was. Let me see if I can pull it up because they're actually going to be airing that again. But the first part of the series was talking about ways to prevent Alzheimer's. And then the second part of the series, which is what's happening now, is basically how you can, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm pulling it back up. How if you have dementia, you can reverse it. If you have signs of dementia, you can reverse it. So the first one was called The Science of Prevention. And I'm going to put all of these links in the comment section. So I came in the other day and I gave like a little recap of my notes from day one, because I felt like I'm not going to hold information to myself anymore. And for me, let me just say this. For me, until Alzheimer's began to hit my family home, and I'll be honest, even when it hit my grandmother, it's still registered as like an old people's illness that you just deal with. It wasn't until it hit home with my mom that I started to realize that this is something that we actually need to be talking about when we're younger. And then the research just goes to show that you really need to start talking about this when you're younger, because you can prevent it and then you can reverse it. So I'm going to just kind of skim through my notes that I took from day 2. So day 2 was an interview with Dr. Dale Bredesen. Dr. Dale Bredesen is, you know what, hold on, I'll be right back. Let me show you this book. Where is it? Let me see if I can get back on the bed without like knocking everything over. All right, so this book right here, this is probably one of the most powerful books, in my opinion, on the planet, at least right now, because this literally talks about how you can reverse Alzheimer's, like literally. So anyway, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote this book, he was the one who was interviewed in detail today. Well, okay, let me be honest. We're on day 5, okay? I got caught in the past few days dealing with my family. My husband got sick, so I got a little bit backed up. So I'm talking to y'all about day 2 on day 5, but I'm going to catch up. I watched them, but I'm going to catch you guys up. So day 2 was called the Silver Buckshot Protocol. identifying and reversing the three primary forms of dementia. So Dr. Dale Bredesen, just so that you guys know, is the first person to publish a study documenting how he successfully reversed Alzheimer's in patients. And so the first study was a small sampling. The first study where he reversed Alzheimer's was 9 out of 10 people that he took through his protocol. The Alzheimer's was reversed. This was back in 2014. He published all of his research. So you can search it. You can look up Dr. Dale Bredesen. You can find information on him everywhere. Now there are several hundred people on the protocol. It's a personalized protocol. So it's not, everybody does this and then it will change that. You go in and there's different tests that are run to find out what's going on. And then there's a personalized protocol that's developed for you. 2 papers have been published already and a third one is being worked on now. They are learning specific things on how to optimize the protocol as they're getting unprecedented results. And in fact, he said that what they started to see was that people who came in who were much further along with Alzheimer's, like people who I guess they thought maybe they couldn't help, they started to see results of the Alzheimer's disease being reversed. So he discusses a revolution in medicine, and he said, in general, this is what we were taught. We meaning doctors, and then therefore, the people at large. So we were all taught that Alzheimer's could not be prevented. The cognitive decline associated with Alzheimer's couldn't be reversed, but that's no longer what they're seeing. And he said for complex chronic illnesses like Alzheimer's, cancer, cardiovascular disease, which are now the leading 3 causes of deaths in the U.S., these are turning out to be complicated diseases, so there are many different things that contribute to it. So he discussed moving from the 20th century way of doing medicine to the 21st century way of doing medicine. The 20th century way of doing medicine is what many doctors were taught and what many doctors are practicing now. And that basically focuses on what? Like, you come in, your leg, what's the problem? You come in, you talk to your doctor because they ask you what's wrong. And then they say, okay, based off of what you're saying is wrong, you're saying that you get a numbing feeling here, you get a tingling feeling there, and you can't walk so well. Okay, well, I think that's this. So this is what you go do. Go take that. I'll prescribe this. What pharmacy are you at? And, you walk away. And I'm not saying that all doctors are like this, but a lot of doctors are like this. Then he starts talking about how we're moving into the 21st century way of doing medicine. And that's more considered precision medicine. And he said that's an emphasis on something completely different. The focus is on why. Why does your leg hurt? What do you eat? What do you do all day? Do you walk? Do you run? Did you do this? It's more of a holistic way of approaching things as opposed to just treating what you are coming in and complaining about as it relates to your symptoms. So for, let me see, what they have found is actually, so what they found through all their research is actually diametrically, I had to write that down because I like that he used diametrically opposed to the claim that has been on the table. I mentioned this in my first video that as I was doing research about Alzheimer's through this book and through other things, that the premise of what caused Alzheimer's all this time is exactly the opposite of what they're finding, which is actually really, really sad because there have been so many people who have died from this disease. So here's what the claim has been. The claim in the past has been this, that when your brain makes this amyloid plaque, because that was the theory, that the amyloid plaque that your brain creates is what causes Alzheimer's. So the theory was that your brain makes your brain making this amyloid plaque, that's a bad thing for your brain and it damages your brain. So then therefore one would think that the goal would be what? To attack the amyloid plaque and to get rid of it. But and again, I'm reading from my notes, that's why I keep looking over here. But what they have found is that the amyloid is a protective response. The amyloid plaque is a protective response that we make to 3 different classes of pathogens and insults. And other groups and doctors such as Dr. Moyer and Dr. Tanzi from Harvard have shown that there's actually an antimicrobial effect. Now, let me just preface this. This particular interview, I'm not going to say it's like really, really scientific, but it gets really, really specific to the body. So I'm going to do my best to, I took my notes to understand it the way I could. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, a journalist. So I'm sharing what I got in hopes that it piques your interest enough to go and do your own research, to click the link that I'm going to put in the comment section to join in on this series, because you can join in and see the rest of the series and you can see the replays. So this is the purpose of me sharing this information, hopefully enlighten somebody and to help somebody and perhaps save a life or 2 or 3. So what we have found, amyloid plaque, right? Okay, so we get exposed to a number of things during our lives, and as a part of a protective response, we make the very stuff that the pathologist would look at and say, oh, you have Alzheimer's. So think about that. My brain will make something to protect itself. But what it makes to protect itself is the very thing that if I went in for a test currently, a pathologist would say, based off of what I see on your brain, you have Alzheimer's. This is a protective response to 3 different things that could possibly be happening. And Dr. Dale Bredesen, he coined these 3 terms that I'm about to tell y'all. So he sections off Alzheimer's into 4 different sections. One is type 1 Alzheimer's, typically shown in people in their 60s. And when I say the age range, the ages, it doesn't mean that it's absolute. It's like in general. So it could be younger, it could be older, but in general, people who have type 1 Alzheimer's start to show these signs typically in their 60s. So that type 1 Alzheimer's deals with inflammation from foods that you eat. So that could be trans fats, too much sugar, etc. Chronic pathogens like herpes, like Lyme's disease, specific fungi and mold, certain bacteria in your mouth, etc. And this is also linked to leaky gut. I don't know if you guys have been hearing that term a lot more lately. It seems like it's becoming more of a popular term because a lot more people have leaky gut. Like many of us have leaky gut, which is a digestive condition in which bacteria and toxins are able to literally leak through the intestinal wall, this is becoming extremely common in people. And this is connected to many different chronic diseases, which usually means that there is chronic inflammation because the bacteria and the toxins that leak out of your stomach, they leak into your bloodstream, which means that they can go to different parts of your body. So now, we're talking all different types of illnesses and diseases that can happen as a result of this leaky gut, one of which can be dementia, Alzheimer's. In this case, in an effort to prepare for, so now if your brain knows that you have leaky gut, that means that it has these, these nasty toxins and bacteria that are coming its way. It perceives it as an enemy. So you think of an army who is preparing for war. So they're preparing for the battle to begin. So your brain, in an effort to prepare for the potential attack, it begins to produce amyloid to protect the brain. Type 2 Alzheimer's, which is typically shown in people in their 70s or so, he said that that's atrophic. I'm working on these words. Typing this up was like crazy. So atrophic is withdrawal of I'm not pronouncing it right. Trophic. Withdrawal of trophic supporting influences on your brain. So, for instance, that's like your vitamin D, estradiol, testosterone, nerve growth factor, vitamin B12, other nutrients, etc. All of these are critical to providing your brain with support that it needs to keep up the synapses. So basically, it's saying that these types of things, your vitamin D, your vitamin B12, when your body when you stop producing these things in your body, then you stop supporting your brain's system in a sense. He said, look at it this way. Your brain is looking at, here's what we like to have. So in a perfect world, we like to be able to do all these different things. We like to have this network. But here's what we're actually able, here's the network we actually can afford based off of what we have. So in a perfect world, we have tons of vitamin B12 and vitamin K and all the hormones are in place and we have all these different things. But in your situation, we don't have that. So, you know, it'd be nice to have $100, but I only got 10, so I got to make do with what I have. So I can only, you know, I might only be able to buy oodles and noodles as opposed to getting, you know, something else to eat that's healthier. I'm just giving a, you know, a similar scenario. So what we can afford. So now as you start taking things away, no different than what happens in a company. Okay, so he compared this to a company. If you have a company and you don't have the right things coming in, you're going to have to downsize. So what's the first thing that your boss would say? He would say that we can't hire new people. And that's what your brain says. We're going to keep the stuff we have, and we're going to have to, you know, not allow any new things to come in. So you might still keep your memories from childhood. You might still be able to drive a car, but the person that you just met yesterday, you might not be able to remember their name. Or even if your granddaughter was just born last week, you might forget that your granddaughter was born. So like in my case with my mom sometimes she remembers she remembers the idea that I had a baby, but sometimes it's she doesn't know that I had the baby yet, or sometimes she remembers I had the baby, but because it's more in her short-term memory, her brain it doesn't keep it the way that it keeps. If I ask her something about, you know, when she was 12, she remembers that very vividly. So that's what your brain says. We're going to keep the stuff we have, and we're still going to know how to drive or play tennis, but we can't bring on new memories. This is from not being able to support the network structure that you have in your brain. You've got nearly 1 quadrillion synapses in your brain, so it takes a lot to support all of this. If you start decreasing trophic support, whether it's hormonal, nutritional, etc., you can no longer support this network effectively and begin a strategic downsizing. Your brain begins to keep the perceived important stuff. And he said that all through your life, you pick up things. You know, you learn how to walk, you learn how to talk, you learn certain things, and your brain, and obviously those move into long-term memory, and your brain perceives that as important information. Thus the elimination, like I said, of the short-term memory or the inability to acquire new information. The amyloid precursor protein does this. It's like the CFO of the company. So the amyloid itself is like a smaller piece of the bigger piece of protein. And so this amyloid precursor protein, stay with me, is looking at many different inputs. It looks at, you know, what comes in over here, what comes in over there. Did we get enough to keep doing this? Can we afford to keep doing that? Are we in the red over here? And then it makes a decision to downsize stuff. Like, okay, we can't afford to do this anymore, so we got to cut that off. All of this is happening in your brain. So Dr. Bredesen tells of a story of a woman, and that's what I like about this, is that in his book, when he's talking, he gives real life examples of people who have gone through this program and has reversed their Alzheimer's. So he tells a story of a woman who he treated with this type of Alzheimer's disease, and her husband called her memory literally disastrous. She would go out and try to play golf or work, but could not remember anything. She took online testing. I guess there's an online testing you can do, and she tested in the ninth percentile, which is really, really not good. And then after doing the program, she's now at the 95th percentile for her age with her memory. She can now golf and remember everyone's scores, the things that she wasn't able to do before relating to work and retaining information, she now can. And, when she came in, her evaluation showed that she had low vitamin D, which a lot of us have low vitamin D, estradiol, I can't pronounce that well, progesterone, pregnenolone, and thyroid. All of those levels were low. Her husband now says that her memory is back to normal. So in her situation, they attacked those low levels and pumped it up. I'm sure there were other things in the protocol that they did, but she has clearly improved over time. And then there is type 1.5 Alzheimer's. So there was type 1, that was inflammatory. There's type 2, that's atrophic. And then there's type 1.5 Alzheimer's. And he said this is if you have a sugar-related problem where you get prediabetes or insulin resistance. This results in you having both the inflammation of type 1 and the trophic withdrawal of type 2, thus being type 1.5. Type 3 Alzheimer's typically shows in people who are younger, like in their 50s. So he said that this is considered, this is toxic. Not this is toxic, but this is due to toxicity. And being exposed to different toxins. He said that this type of Alzheimer's looks very different and it acts very different from the other two, and therefore it must be treated completely differently for you to receive optimum results. He said it looks more like Lewy body disease, and I have to be honest, I looked up Lewy body's disease at a glance. I didn't look at it thoroughly, but to me, from what I saw, the Lewy body's disease or Lewy body's dementia is more of like losing inability to do a lot more than just acquire new memory. It's like forgetting to do things you could already do. So he said this is the toughest one to treat, because you have to identify all of the exposures. This one, usually the person will show like signs of depression. The other two, the person might not even realize that they're experiencing dementia. This one hits a little bit differently. Your brain makes the amyloid also to bind to these toxins, whether it be chemical toxins, which are like copper, mercury, or biotoxins, which are mold related. The most common toxins that they've seen are the biotoxins. So that's the mold related one. That's the one that I was really, really shocked at, that so many people are impacted by mold related toxins, which is a little scary too, because you really I don't know if I have mold in my house right now unless I were to see it or have it tested. And how many people are testing their homes for mold unless they see it? You know what I mean? So anyway, so type 1 and 2 usually start with memory loss. Type 3 is different because it usually starts with executive dysfunction, so trouble with calculating, planning, visual perception, word finding, and is often in younger people. You can have a combination of any or all of the three types of Alzheimer's. They are estimating that there are likely approximately 500,000 people in the U.S. With type 3. Dr. Bredesen gives an example of a man who came in complaining about senior moments and having difficulty on his job. Both of his parents passed away from Alzheimer's. He has the genetic disposition of the ApoE4 gene, and all of his tests showed that he was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. He started the protocol, and after about 3 months, he clearly improved. He's done the program for about 3 years now, and he said when the guy goes off the program, the symptoms come back. So the cognitive decline is directly correlated to his behavior. And when he came in, he said he came in with a horrible diet and a horrible lifestyle. He was literally giving himself Alzheimer's. So what does his protocol and program look like? Now, if you want to know specifically what his protocol is, get the book. Like, get the book, gift the book, whatever. But it's all in here. But in general, these were some of the points that he made. The first thing was, there's no magic pill. There's no silver bullet for this. And like I said in my first video, this was difficult in my family because my dad and I used to go back and forth when I first started learning about this stuff, because I'm like, we need to address mommy's lifestyle. We have to do all this different stuff with food. And in my dad's defense, you know, what we've been accustomed to is, hey, when we're sick, we go to the doctor, and the doctor is supposed to give us something to fix this. So the doctor's giving her this medication and basically telling us that it should slow stuff down but prepare for the worst over time. And until they come up with a cure, because there's currently no cure, no magic bullet, no magic pill, silver bullet, whatever, this is what we're going to do. So basically anything that I brought to him for a while, and again, I'm not saying this to put my dad out there. My dad would not be upset with me putting this out there. I understand the space that he was in, not to mention how hard it is to go through that with your loved one. So any information I would present to him, it's like, is that a guarantee? What do you mean if she changes how she eats? Like, that's not, is that the cure? Like, that was what I kept battling. And at that time, I didn't really know how to address that, because anything you saw says Alzheimer's has no cure. But like I said in my first video, we've been accustomed to define cure as take this pill and it's gone. That's why I thought it was important. He said it's actually a silver buckshot. Now, I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what a buckshot was. I had to do a little bit of research. I now understand what a buckshot is. Buckshot is the shotgun bullet that has the pellets inside. So it's not a one bullet approach. It's multiple different approaches in order to address this, which is important to know. He said so his program is targeted, and like I said, it's personalized. They find out what is causing the downsizing in the brain, and they deal with each thing. They ask different questions. Is this a specific pathogen associated? Is this a breakdown in the immune system? Is this due to a genetic change? Are there specific things in the diet that are causing inflammation, like processed foods and GMO-related foods? And then he said something I thought was interesting. He called it SAD, Standard American Diet. I never heard of that acronym. Standard American Diet. He called that a pro-Alzheimer's diet. That's crazy. He said, if you want to give yourself Alzheimer's disease, then follow the SAD. If you want to give yourself Alzheimer's disease, then follow the Standard American Diet. How many people in America are following the Standard American Diet? A lot of people are following the Standard American Diet, and chronic disease is increasing. Like, there is no coincidence about that. He said if you want to prevent it, then you follow your biochemistry. When you get to 50 years old, you should have a colonoscopy. If you are over 45, you should get a cognoscopy. Cognoscopy. You want to know, these are different things that they would do, or that you want to find out. You want to know your blood testing for your genetics and your biochemistry. You want to know if you have chronic infections. You want to know where you stand with your performance. So then he went into synaptoclastic and synaptoblastic. Don't be overwhelmed by these words. Synaptoclastic and synaptoblastic. The downsizing that happens in your brain is considered synaptoclastic. That's synapsis destroying activity. Some of which we actually need, because you don't want or need to remember everything. Like you don't need to remember, like the 7th song that came on the radio when you went to work last week. Because your brain still needs the room to remember the things that are important, like how, what to say, how to read, how to write. Making and storing memories is synaptoblastic. It's synapsis making activity. So his program works to help balance the two by decreasing the synaptoclastic signals and increasing the synaptoblastic activity, because everyone with Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's risk is on the wrong side of that balance. There's too much synaptoclastic activity. He said Alzheimer's disease should be a very rare disease, and they have the science to support that, but it's currently a common disease. But in order to change that, you have to be proactive. The doctor is not responsible for your health ultimately, and I think that that's what we've become conditioned. That's what we have become conditioned to think and believe. The government is not responsible for our health. And this pushed me with this whole cure thing again. With processing my dad's questions of well, is there a cure? Is it a cure? Is it a cure? I realized, I said, Daddy, well, let me ask you this question. Who are you waiting? Who are you looking to call you to tell you there is a cure? Are you waiting for them to announce it through the government? You waiting for Trump to say it? Are you waiting for your doctor to call? Are you waiting to see it online? Are you waiting for a news alert? And that's when I realized how much, I don't want to say trust and faith, because I'm not attempting to knock the medical industry. I wanted to be a doctor. My cousin's a doctor. I respect doctors, and so it's not a hit, but I just realized how much of my health I put in the hands of someone else, as opposed to really learning about my body and learning what your body needs and being proactive about it. So he talked a small part about the genes component, because there was also a notion that if you have the Alzheimer's gene, then you are automatically going to get it and you're automatically doomed. So he did say that there are hundreds of genes associated with risk for Alzheimer's, and the most common is APOE, APOE. There are about 325 million Americans with this particular gene, and approximately 75 million of these Americans have APOE4, are APOE4 positive and have a single copy of APOE4. If you have APOE4, if you're APOE4 positive and you have a single copy, then your risk of getting Alzheimer's increases about 30%. If you have 0 copies, your risk is about 90%. And if you have 2 copies, which approximately 7 million of that 325 million have, then your risk is over 50%. So you're really likely to to get Alzheimer's, which is important for me because I'm not really sure. I don't know if my mom got tested for that or my grandmother. I have to ask my aunt, ask my dad. I'm not really sure, but I've been, and I admitted this in the other video, I've been scared to get tested because I didn't want to claim it. But now that I understand where all of this sits, and that finding out if you have the gene is not like a death sentence, it's actually arming you with information so that you can do something about it. Now I want to go and get myself tested. So the interviewer, she said, so what should people do with this information? Like, what should they do? And so he said, start by looking at the book. And it's not in like a promoting my book kind of way, but in all seriousness, I mean, he put all of the information in the book. So get the book. The second thing is you can go to his website, www, I'll put this in the comments as well, www.mpicognition.com, or you can go to www.drbredesen.com. His last name is Bredesen. He said that you'll want to talk to a practitioner who is aware of this program. The obvious question is, where do I find these practitioners? You can find these practitioners on his website. So you want to find a practitioner who's aware of this program and get tested and find out where you currently stand. Now, I'm 36 years old. I gave you the ages, the approximate ages of when type 1, type 2, type 3 shows up. But the fact of the matter is that the things that show the signs and symptoms that show up for somebody when they're 60, they can actually see where you could be on your path when you are 30, maybe younger. So just because you're not 70, 60, 50 does not mean that you ignore this until then. We want to be proactive and preventative. In fact, he said some people came in thinking that they were being preventative, and they actually were in the very, very, very beginning stages of cognitive decline, because like I said, it doesn't always show itself in a way where it's obvious to you. Currently, there are 450 practitioners trained in the United States and around the world, and he said there will be over 1,000 by the end of the year. And then these are the last 2 points. He said, remember that this is a part of a major and fundamental change in our medical system. Like, I don't know what it was like when, they made major discoveries, when, they cured polio or cured all these, scarlet fever or whatever. All those things I learned about in history, having, they already cured polio. They had already done those things. So I don't know what it's like to be living during a time when something as substantial as the medical industry is literally going through a change. It's going through a change where a lot of the information and the ways that practicing has been happening, not only is it different, but it actually contradicts a lot of the way that medicine has been going thus far. So because of that, and he even said it, understandably so, going from 20th century medicine to 21st century medicine, there's going to be skepticism. And he gets that. But that's not an excuse, which is why you need to arm yourself with information. Let me tell y'all, so 2 things. My dad is in, and then I'll close out. My dad is in a caregiver support group, which is important because either way, even with my mom, she's gonna do this program. The support of the caregiver, the caregiver still goes through a lot. So I get it, and I get the need for that. I asked, so naturally, the lady who runs this support group my dad as well as the other people who attend, they clearly value her input. They trust her. They look to her for information. So when this book first came out, I emailed her and asked her, had she heard of this book? She said no. And on one hand, I'm like, okay, well, maybe she didn't hear about it yet, right? On the other hand, I was kind of bothered by it because I'm like, well, you're providing, support to these people who have people at home with Alzheimer's. And you don't know about the book that says the first program to prevent and reverse cognitive decline. Like, that's a problem for me. Then I sent a list of questions to my dad to bring with him to my mom's neurologist. And I was bothered as well for two reasons. One, because all of my questions, which have come out of my research, he didn't answer right away. Like, I mean, I get it. Doctors are busy. But I say it took a couple of weeks and kind of, I'm not going to say a threat, but like a push that if he didn't respond, we would have to go, there's some committee or something you could go to that my dad knew about. I didn't know. But my dad said, like, basically, look, you're going to need to respond to this or we're going to have to go to this committee. I don't know what it was. So I was kind of bothered, like, well, why wouldn't he want to answer my questions about this unless he doesn't know about what I'm asking him about? And I'm naming doctors. I'm asking questions about different things related to lifestyle and health. 'Cause my basic thing was, hey, did you hear about this book? Do you know about all these doctors? Did you hear about these two major pharmaceutical companies who pulled out from making drugs for Alzheimer's patients because, people with Alzheimer's, because none of them have been working? Did you know that it's being proven that the onset of Alzheimer's is highly connected to your lifestyle, your eating habits, your environment, the chemicals, the metals that you're taking in? Like, do you know all of this? And because of all of these questions, what's the program that you have recommended for my mom to follow outside of prescribing her these drugs that are not working? Because what you keep doing is you keep playing with her dosage of these medications, which are not working. But I want to know what else you're doing. So his response was extremely not okay. His response was basically kind of like, no, I haven't heard of those doctors. I've heard a little bit about something that I had asked about. And yes, she should be eating healthy. And that was kind of it. And I had a problem with that. The good thing is that me asking those questions and my dad seeing the way that the doctor responded, I think that was a wake-up call for him. Like, it's time for my mom to have a different neurologist. And I'm giving this personal example to show that even though he's a doctor who probably knows way more than me in the area of medicine in general, he didn't know about this. He's treating my mom like my parents are going to him for guidance and advice and feedback and prescriptions on what to do with her life. My great aunt, my great grandfather died from Alzheimer's, and we're relying on a doctor who does not know about this, and based off of his response, really has no intention of finding out. In fact, Dr. Dale Bredesen, he said that one of his patients said that when she asked her doctor about all of this stuff. He cut her and her husband off and was like, I don't want to hear about it because they didn't teach us about nutrition in medical school, and I don't want to hear about nutrition. How do you not want to hear about nutrition when it's directly correlated? So again, I'm just saying that so that those of you who are already in the trenches, those of you, especially if you're already seeing signs, or if a loved one is already at a certain level, I get that it could kind of be hard to believe that it can be reversed. Like, I get that. I do get that. And it can be hard to believe it could be reversed when you're looking at the symptoms and the doctor that you're going to is perpetuating you thinking that there's no hope. Arm yourself with this information and know that just because they don't know about it doesn't mean it's not true. And so that again is why it's important to really find a doctor who not even buys into it, but is practicing 21st century medicine. And so finally he says your brain is important and you need to take care of it. Another doctor was saying, he said, people neglect their brain because they can't see it. Like you can't see your brain. You can see your weight. We spend most of our time worried about the things you can physically see. And usually it boils down to losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, pumping up. We want our butt to be this way. We want to tone. We like the things that we can see. Our brain is extremely important. If you don't take care of your brain, what your body on the outside looks like really won't matter because you won't be here. So that's all that I have from day 2. Like I said, today was day 5. I have to watch day 5. I've caught up from day 1 through 4. I've taken notes, but I don't want to inundate. I'll probably do like 2 or 3 lives tomorrow throughout the course of the day so I can catch up, because I would really love people to sign up for the rest of this series so that you can see it for yourself, take your own notes. Like I said, I'm going to put the link in the comment section. I'm not getting paid for this. They don't even know that I'm doing this. I'm sharing this because I feel like I'm supposed to, and so I'm just going to keep doing it. The other thing is that they realized that a lot of people either missed the beginning of the series, or some people haven't been able to keep up with it because they play each episode stays live for 24 hours and then it goes to the next one. So they are going to air all of these episodes. I think it's like 11 or 12 in total, because this ends in the beginning of October, like October 3rd. So they're going to pick a weekend where they're going to allow access to all of the episodes. So if you missed any of them, you will have an opportunity to do that. Obviously, you can buy the whole series. So you can do that at any given time. And the money that you send would be used towards the research that they're doing. And then, like I said, the first series, which was called Alzheimer's, the Science of Prevention, All Connected. This one is going to re-air. It's 12 episodes. This one is going to re-air starting on October 9th. I already watched that whole series. I'm going to watch it again. I'll do my best to take notes. I didn't take notes the first go around, but I watched it. So I'm going to try my best to take notes and perhaps do this as well. I'm just attempting to inundate so that people pay attention. You got to post up 50,000 times for somebody to see it one time. So with that said, it's 11:43. Tomorrow, I'll catch you guys up on the rest of the episodes. I'm going to put the links in the comment section. I'm going to have to close this out and then come back and put it in because I got to pull it from out of my email. And, yeah, I hope we keep this conversation going. If any of you guys join in and start watching, please let me know. DM me, comment in any of my lives. Post it on your page. Like, let's not be afraid to have this conversation, because we can totally make a difference here. Totally. So you guys have a wonderful, hey Tisha, hey Doya, what's up, Too Tall? I'm sorry, William. All right, you guys have a wonderful evening or night rather, and I will talk to you mañana.